It started with a question so quiet it almost blended into the hum of the heater, the kind of question that changes the direction of a life before you even realize it's been asked. She stood in my doorway, coat still on, eyes tired but brave, and said, "Is there space in the single dad's bed?" Not the bed, really, not like that, but the life around it, the chaos of school lunches and late-night fevers and memories that still slept beside me. I didn't answer right away, and in that pause, she saw every doubt I'd ever carried. She didn't know it yet, but one sentence was about to stun her, and me, into telling the truth we'd both been avoiding. I'm Adam, a widowed father of a 6-year-old named Leo, and my life had been carefully arranged to survive, not to expand. The bed was small, wedged between a nightstand stacked with bills and a wall decorated with Leo's crooked drawings. It had room for one adult and one child during nightmares, and that was all I believed I deserved. Maya had moved into the downstairs apartment 3 months earlier after leaving an abusive marriage. We bonded over broken appliances, shared coffee on the steps, and the way silence can feel safer than explanations. She was kind without being intrusive, strong without advertising it. When Leo got the flu, she left soup by the door without knocking. When her car wouldn't start, I fixed it without asking questions. Somewhere between those moments, something warm grew, something neither of us named. That night, the power went out during a storm, and the building turned into a breathing, creaking thing. Leo was at his grandmother's, the first night I'd had the apartment to myself in months. I heard a knock, opened the door, and found Maya soaked from the rain, shaking more from memory than cold. Her apartment had flooded. She tried to laugh it off, but her voice cracked. "I can sleep on the couch," she said quickly. Then she hesitated, swallowed, and asked the question that carried more fear than hope. She wasn't asking for a mattress. She was asking if my life had room for her broken edges. I finally spoke, my voice steadier than my heart. "There's space," I said, "but only if you want to build something, not hide." The sentence stunned her because it wasn't an invitation to escape, it was an invitation to stay, to heal, to be seen. Tears filled her eyes, not because she was rejected, but because she was respected. We sat on opposite sides of the bed that night, fully clothed, backs against the headboard, talking until the storm passed. We talked about boundaries, about Leo, about fear and hope and how love doesn't rush, it listens. When morning came, the power flickered back on, and nothing dramatic had happened. And yet, everything had changed. The next weeks were not easy. Leo returned, suspicious of change, protective of his small universe. Maya moved slowly, earning trust with patience instead of promises. She read with him, helped with homework, and never tried to replace anyone. I struggled too. Guilt is a stubborn thing, especially when happiness feels like betrayal. There were nights I almost pulled away, afraid of hurting her or my son. But each time, I remembered that one sentence and what it meant, that love isn't about filling a space, it's about making one. Months later, Leo had a nightmare and crawled into my bed like he always did. Maya was there, sitting on the edge, unsure. He looked at her, then at me, and said, "You can stay. There's space." That was the moment I knew we were doing something right. Not perfect, not painless, but honest. The bed hadn't grown any bigger, but our hearts had learned how to make room. In the end, the inspiring truth was simple and hard-earned: healing doesn't happen when you avoid the past, but when you invite the future in with clear eyes and an open heart. Sometimes, the bravest thing a single dad, or anyone, can do is answer a quiet question with an honest sentence, and mean it. The second chapter begins not with comfort, but with tension, the kind that sneaks in after hope has already taken root. Because once Maya stayed, once the question had been asked and answered, real life started knocking louder than the storm ever did. Morning light exposed everything the darkness had kindly hidden, the narrow hallway cluttered with shoes, the quiet weight of routines built for two people who had learned to survive alone. Maya woke before me, sitting at the small kitchen table, staring at a chipped mug like it held answers. She wasn't wondering if there was space in the bed anymore. She was wondering if there was space in the days ahead, in the messier hours where good intentions get tested. Leo came back that afternoon, backpack dragging behind him, eyes sharp with a child's instinct for change. He noticed Maya's shoes by the door before he noticed her smile. I held my breath. Kids don't need explanations, they read the truth in posture, in tone, in what adults avoid saying. Maya knelt to his level, introduced herself again like it was the first time, and thanked him for sharing his dad. That word, sharing, hit me harder than anything. Leo didn't answer. He just nodded and walked past us, retreating into his room like a turtle pulling into its shell. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat on the edge of the bed, head in my hands, wondering if I'd been selfish. Maya didn't rush to reassure me. She simply said, "Love takes time to feel safe." It was the kind of truth you don't argue with. Days turned into weeks, and the challenges came quietly. Leo testing boundaries. Maya stepping back when she wanted to step in. Me standing in the middle, trying to protect both, failing sometimes. There were arguments, not loud ones, but the dangerous kind filled with silence and misunderstandings. Once, after Leo snapped at her for touching his drawing, Maya locked herself in the bathroom and cried, convinced she didn't belong. I sat outside the door, listening, realizing that love wasn't just about making space, it was about defending it, even when it felt uncomfortable. I told her, through the door, the sentence that became our anchor, "You don't have to disappear to be loved here." The turning point came on an ordinary evening. No storm. No drama. Just a broken bedtime routine when Leo asked Maya to read the story instead of me. She froze, looked at me for permission, and I nodded. Her voice trembled at first, then steadied. Leo leaned against her without realizing it. I watched from the doorway, heart pounding, understanding that healing doesn't announce itself, it whispers. Later that night, Maya confessed she was still afraid. Afraid I'd change my mind. Afraid that one bad day would erase all the progress. I told her the truth I'd learned the hard way: space isn't something you give once. It's something you choose every day. By the end of chapter 2, nothing was perfect. The bed was still small. The past still visited. But the fear that once ruled us had lost its voice. We weren't hiding anymore. We were building, slowly, imperfectly, bravely. And that quiet choice, repeated day after day, became the strongest foundation any of us had ever known. Chapter 3 doesn't arrive gently. It comes with weight, with consequences, with the kind of moments that decide whether love is a phase or a promise. By the time autumn settled in, the air between us felt fuller, but also heavier, like something important was waiting to be said and was running out of patience. Maya had started leaving earlier in the mornings, always with an excuse that sounded reasonable and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Leo noticed before I did. Children always do. One night, as I tucked him in, he asked, "Is Maya leaving?" The question knocked the breath out of me. I told him no, not really knowing if that was the truth or just hope speaking louder than fear. The real test came the night Leo's school called. He'd gotten into a fight. Not a childish scuffle, but the kind fueled by words that cut deeper than fists. Another kid had said something cruel about his mother, about how she was gone and wasn't coming back. Leo reacted the only way his 6-year-old heart knew how. I rushed to the school, anger and guilt twisting together in my chest. Maya followed, even though I didn't ask her to. In the principal's office, Leo sat small and stiff, eyes red, jaw set. When he saw Maya, something cracked. He buried his face into her side, sobbing in a way I'd never seen before. In that moment, I understood the truth I'd been circling for months: she wasn't just someone staying in our space anymore. She was part of his safety. That night, after Leo finally fell asleep, exhaustion took over and honesty slipped out. Maya admitted she'd been pulling away because she was terrified of becoming someone Leo depended on, someone who might hurt him by leaving. Her past still whispered lies into her ears, telling her she didn't deserve stability, that good things always come with an expiration date. I listened, really listened, instead of fixing or reassuring. Then I told her my fear too, that I was scared of loving someone deeply again, scared of failing my son by choosing wrong. We didn't promise forever that night. We promised effort. And strangely, that felt stronger. Life tested us again when Maya's ex showed up unannounced. His voice echoed in the hallway, sharp and entitled, demanding to talk. I stepped between them without thinking, but Maya surprised both of us by standing firm, calm, unafraid. She had grown. She had learned that she didn't need permission to protect her peace. After he left, shaking and furious, she collapsed into tears, not from fear, but from relief. Leo watched from his bedroom doorway. Later, he hugged her and said, "You were brave." She cried harder then, because sometimes the smallest voices heal the deepest wounds. As weeks passed, our home slowly transformed, not bigger, not richer, but warmer. There were setbacks. Bad days. Moments when grief resurfaced unexpectedly, when I caught myself comparing, when Maya wondered if she was living in someone else's shadow. But there were victories too. Shared dinners. Laughter during board games. Quiet evenings where silence felt safe instead of lonely. One night, after Leo fell asleep between us during a movie, Maya whispered, "I think there's space here. Not just in the bed, but in the future." Chapter 3 ends with a simple image, 3 people, imperfect and healing, choosing each other without guarantees. Because love, real love, isn't about certainty. It's about showing up again and again, even when the past tries to convince you that you shouldn't. And for the first time since I became a single dad, I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living, and so were they. By the time Chapter 4 unfolds, the fear that once ruled our home has softened into something quieter, but it hasn't disappeared. It lingers in corners, in pauses, in the moments when happiness feels almost too loud, like it might wake old ghosts. Winter arrives early that year, pressing cold against the windows and forcing us closer together. Leo gets sick again, a bad fever that keeps him home from school for days. Sleep becomes fractured, nights blur into mornings, and exhaustion strips away our careful balance. It's in those worn-down hours that truth shows itself most clearly. Maya sleeps on the floor beside Leo's bed without complaint, waking at every cough, every restless turn. I watch her in the dim light and realize she's no longer asking whether there's space, she's already made herself part of it. But love is never tested only by tenderness. It's tested by pressure. Bills pile up. Maya's job cuts her hours. I'm offered overtime that would keep me away from home more than Leo can handle. We argue for the first time in raised voices, frustration spilling out sideways. Maya accuses me of shutting her out when things get hard. I accuse her of trying to carry burdens that aren't hers. The words sting because they're half true. That night, she sleeps on the couch, and the bed feels enormous for the first time, empty in a way that scares me. I lie awake realizing that space, once created, can also be lost if you stop protecting it. The next morning, Leo does something neither of us expects. He drags his blanket into the living room and curls up between us, still half asleep. No speeches. No sides taken. Just presence. It breaks the tension in a way adult words couldn't. Maya looks at me, eyes tired but clear, and says, "I don't want to fight for space. I want to share it." I nod, throat tight, finally understanding that partnership doesn't mean equal weight every day, it means trust that the load will be carried, one way or another. The real closing moment comes weeks later, quietly, without drama. Leo's school hosts a small family night. He insists Maya come. Not as a guest. Not as a neighbor. Just, come. As we sit in those tiny chairs watching him sing off-key with his classmates, he scans the room until his eyes land on us. He smiles, relaxed, certain. In that instant, I realize the sentence that once stunned Maya has grown into something larger than either of us imagined. The bed was never the point. The space was never physical. It was emotional, intentional, chosen. That night, back home, Leo falls asleep early. Maya and I sit on the edge of the bed, fingers intertwined. She asks softly, not with fear anymore, but with hope, "Is there still space?" I answer without hesitation, the words steady and sure. There always was. We just had to be brave enough to keep it. And in that moment, the story doesn't end with perfection or promises carved in stone. It ends with something stronger, commitment built from honesty, healing, and the quiet courage to let love stay.